This is GARIS Masculists MGTOW flyers, which are 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW. Written and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 180, entitled Why MGTOWs / Masculists Despise Fluffies. Description. This flyer explains why MGTOW / Masculists have such a contempt for fluffy parasites who exploit men as manslaves. The primary political goal of the Masculists is to wipe out fluffies by refusing to have anything to do with them, twaytweffing only with FIP women. Fluffies are doomed to die out through moral pressure from men. Now the flyer itself. Why MGTOWs / Masculists despise fluffies. Because fluffies, that's traditional women who expect to be able to parasite off the money of a man, because fluffies are exploitative parasites. They sit on their fat, lazy bums in high school, not studying the hard option of math and the sciences, so that they're excluded from studying STEM, S-T-E-M, science, tech, engineering, math, at university, so end up with a fluffy crap diploma that the economy does not value. So these fluffy crappers end up with low salaries in their 20s. For a decade, they sex lots of men, but time catches up with them. When they get into their 30s, they realize that they're unable to earn enough money to be able to afford their own middle-class house or apartment, so start looking around for some manslave that they parasite on, having him pay for the house that she can raise her kids in. The strategy of the fluffy is therefore essentially exploitative, parasitic. Fluffies are hated by MGTOWs and Masculists for being immoral, parasitic, manslaving vermin. The main political goal of the Masculists is to wipe out fluffydom by wiping out fluffies, by refusing to have anything to do with them. Once millions of men are MGTOWs / Masculists, any woman who gets the reputation of being a fluffy is like being branded with a capital F on her forehead, which would mean the kiss of death for her in ever getting a man to pay attention to her. Masculists particularly put enormous moral pressure on fluffies to become FIPs, that's financially independent person, or be punished severely by men. A fluffy will be treated as scum, as morally corrupt, and to be spat at, because they expect to be able to parasite off the labour of a man. This is exploitation on a massive scale and fits well into the Marxist critique of capitalists exploiting the labour of workers, the proletariat. In the Masculist idea, fluffies exploit the labour of men, expecting men to be manslaves for them. In the UK, I read of a recent report that young British men are judging women by their level of fitness, rather than by their female looks, which was the top criterion. This is a very healthy development, and I hope this attitude of men will spread and spread, so that fluffies feel enormous moral pressure to be FIPs. Otherwise they will rot on the shelf, being utterly neglected by men who see fluffies as vermin to be wiped out. If you Google the proportion of young women who study calculus at high school, it's only about 15%, that's 15%, in the US. Interestingly, the proportion of men who study calculus is also about 15%. But that means that 85% of young women are still fluffy crappers, studying fluffy crap at high school and hence at college, because they are excluded by the universities from studying a STEM field, because they do not have the high school diplomas in calculus and the sciences. The fluffy crapper problem starts in the high schools, so politically minded MGTOWs / Masculists need to focus their attention on the high school, to push young women to be FIP majors, studying calculus and the sciences, so that they will have any chance of getting any attention from a man. Even a woman who studies a FIP major at high school will at best be able to twaytweff with a man, in brackets 2A, 2F equals 2 apartments, 2 FIPs, which is both partners are FIPs and have their own apartment. They will not have kids because the fluffy feminists have taken over the divorce courts and financially massacre about 1 married man in 4 in the US. Young men in the US and Japan are rejecting marriage paternity, and spend their money on themselves. In both countries, about 70% of young men under 35 are doing this. This is the large majority, so most women will not have a baby. The 85% of fluffy women at high school will not even be able to twaytweff. Men will not go near them. They might be sexed, but then quickly dumped, because fluffies are seen by men as hazardous, as immoral vermin. Masculists are very moralistic. They put enormous moral pressure on fluffies, shaming them to pull their financial weight or be severely punished by being neglected. The Masculists want to wipe them out, their primary political goal. A decade from now, probably the proportion of young men under 35 who reject fluffies, who refuse to marry, refuse to have kids, and spend their money on themselves, pursuing their own man-oriented lifestyles, will probably be over 90%. So fluffies will be in panic mode. They will wake up that they cannot expect to be able to parasite off the money and labour of a man. They will be forced to be fips, or they rot on the shelf. And that is how things should be. Fluffies are hated by the Masculists. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com.